Tim Kawakami in The Athletic predicts the Niners will trade Jimmy Garoppolo to the Steelers for a 4th-round pick this year and a conditional 4th-round pick next year that could become a 2nd.
I don't think the 49ers, I don't know. You think they want to do something that doesn't come to fruition for a year? Or do you think that's just going to be their lack of leverage with Jimmy Garoppolo that, like, listen, we'll give you something to do the deal now, but we are not giving you a second-day pick till he proves for us that he's a good player, right? Because Carson Wentz ultimately wasn't based on statistics or production or whether you made the playoffs or not. It was just based on the 75%. So maybe the Niners, you could argue the Carson Wentz deal, while the compensation with Carson Wentz because his high end was higher, even though he had struggled, you're going to get more for Carson Wentz like the Eagles did last year than you would for Jimmy Garoppolo right now. But I do think teams would be like, that is the precedent for this, and we're just going to move it back. Obviously, if Jimmy's our starting quarterback 100% of the time, we're not giving you a first-round pick no matter what. But could it be something that, like, you give us a 3rd now and then a 4th next year, but that 4th goes to a 2nd if you make the playoffs and he starts 15 out of 17 games or something? Or, it's probably easier with a snap percentage. So 75 feels a little like I would be like 85% of the snaps.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, I also think both sides can make arguments for why. Let's just use the Steelers because that's Tim's prediction. The Steelers can make a great argument for why they shouldn't give more than a 4th up front, and the Niners can make a great argument for why they should. I think the argument you can make if you're the Niners is this, and I'll make it just for the sake of argument. No, if you give us a 2nd, you guys went to the playoffs last year with Ben Roethlisberger. If you give us a 2nd, I know it feels like a lot, but imagine how much further you could get if Jimmy Garoppolo is your quarterback instead of Ben Roethlisberger. And I think the Steelers would say, yeah, but he could play 6 games. He could be hurt. The one thing with Ben, he gets hurt, but he always comes back. He always plays. And
he came back in a Raider game where he missed the entire half.
He came back in the game. That's right. And the Niners would counter and be like, oh, Jimmy came back too. And Jimmy played hurt this year. I think the problem if you're acquiring Jimmy is not that you might overpay a little bit for a quarterback, because everyone overpays a little bit for a quarterback. It's that you could overpay and then have him not be available. So I do think it does make a lot of sense. I think the best way for the Niners to get, say, a 2nd-round pick is to have it be a conditional pick. I think it's going to be hard to just get a 2nd-round pick up front or whatever the best pick they could get.
My point is, are you better off just because I think a lot of teams are going to be like, hey, man, we'll give you a 4th or a 5th and do that, where they realize it easily could just turn into a 5th and a 4th, or something. If you're the Niners, like, hey, can you just get a 3rd, get him out of there, and just move on and not have to wait? Because I think the contingency on Jimmy Garoppolo, like we had talked about Carson Wentz, the difference is he hadn't missed a game in 2 years. He got knocked out of the playoff game against Seattle, and then the following year, he got benched, but he played in all the games. And even this year, I give him credit. Remember, he had the foot thing the first day at camp, but remember, he was back. Like, he ended up coming back. And the only couple games that he missed this year, if I remember correctly, were, I don't even know if he did. Remember, it was the COVID thing, and they changed the rule by that, like, week 15 or 16. I don't think they started another quarterback this season. So, I bet the Eagles felt pretty good about him playing the games, and it wasn't dependent on wins and losses or production. Where Jimmy, it's like, I would not feel good about him playing in 17 games. So the contingency of him missing games would probably be pretty high. Would I just take what I get now and move on? It's it's back to the real estate analogy. This isn't oceanfront property, so it's like if you can get $100,000 over asking, just take it and move on instead of like trying to like get really cute with it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it's dependent. And so what you're saying is you're just okay taking at worst 2 4th-round picks, right? That's the worst.
What I would be shooting for is like get the 3rd and get out.
Well, I agree, and I do think part of the
if I get a 2nd-day pick guy, which second I'm not expecting, if I can get a 3rd-round pick up front and not have to worry about any of the other bullshit that is going to be much more contingent based, I'm out. I'm good.
Yeah, you'd rather do a 3rd than a 4th and a 2nd 4th in 2023 that could become a 2nd, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You would take a 3rd in the bush over a 4th and maybe a 2nd also in the hand.
Well, I could see it being something. I could be seeing something like a 4th, and we'll give you a 5th next year, but if we make the playoffs and he plays a bunch of games, we'll also give you a 3rd. Or something just kind of.
Well, but Kawakami's prediction was a 2nd 4th that becomes a 2nd. I think that the other quarterback happenings are part of the dynamic here. And one thing Sando kind of just mentioned in a separate part of his podcast was, would Bruce Arians want Carson Wentz? Because if Bruce Arians wants Carson Wentz, the Colts might prefer Jimmy Garoppolo. Would Bruce prefer Carson or Jimmy?
Colts, man. My take on the Carson Wentz scenario is they're trying to get him to take a pay cut, and they're trying to float this to kind of really kind of put the screws to him a little bit. Why would they even fuck with that? Like, guy, they were a game away from making the playoffs.
Yeah, they lost to the Jags.
I mean, Jimmy lost some shitty teams too.
I know.
What the fuck's the difference between them? I saw Carson Wentz beat him.
Well, yeah, he has a higher ceiling.
These musical chairs of these type guys feel a little bit like I do not expect Carson Wentz to be on a different team next year.
So I think we can remove the Bucs as a Jimmy Garoppolo destination, given Arians. Denver as a Jimmy Garoppolo destination is real. I think football team is real. I don't think he'd want to go play for the Texans. And I think
I had the thought today on a little walk that if I was Jimmy Garoppolo and Don Yee, I would say, listen, I'm not going to the Commanders. Even Ron's a high-level guy, and I would play for Ron Rivera, but not in that franchise. I do think you could just – if you and I were in Don Yee's camp, like we were worked for Don Yee, and he went around, we were sat at a table, us three. We're like his two minions. And he goes, MIDDLEKAUFF, what do you think? Commanders, they want him. They'd be in. I'd be like, I would not waive my no-trade clause there. And I like Ron Rivera. I'm not fucking around with that.
Well, yeah, but it's not about necessarily just no trade. They can trade him later, even though I don't think they'd force it on him. It's not just about no trade. It's also about like they're gonna want to restructure probably your contract, and you can also exert some will that way.
My point is this: if we had a couple options and it's all relatively
I know. I just
win-win.
I think we have to say that about no trade because then people jump on the like.
You're saying his no trade is not Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. It's not. It ends.
Yes, but I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying if you and I do the show and we say his no trade, people come at us and go, well, his no trade's going to expire, and my response is, but he's going to have $27 million. The team acquiring him is going to want to restructure. Jimmy is still going to have power after his no trade expires. So that's the only reason I interrupted.
And this is not 19.
I do think Jimmy has some say, no matter pre or post no trade. That's the point.
Because this is not 1992 Al Davis Raiders. He's just going to do whatever he wants. This is modern day NFL, where you're scratching other people's back, they're scratching yours. You're not going to fuck Jimmy Garoppolo. Like he's not getting fucked in this deal.
Right.
They are not trading him to somewhere he does not want to get traded. Part of it is if the no trade didn't exist, I would say, yeah, probably not. But it does, and they're working together. And I think Jimmy earned respect this year with them. It's going to be a win-win thing. So my recommendation would be if there are equal saves, if like that's the place that's going to give you an extra $30, $40 million, yeah. But if we, assuming that there are a couple equal opportunities with the Denver, with a Pittsburgh, with your Indy scenario, under
New
no
Orleans,
circumstances,
New Orleans.
We are not, Commanders are not on my list. And because of that guy, like there's always something else there, guy. It becomes not about football with that place.
Yeah, but there just aren't that many. If Rodgers is staying put, there's the Broncos, there's the Saints, there's the football team, there's the Texans. I don't think he's going to the Texans for the same reasons you just said about the football team.
I think they like their quarterback a lot.
Yeah, if you're that, here's the other thing. If you're them, why would you do that? Davis Mills, you just took with the second or third pick of the third round. He's physically more talented. You're not doing that. That's a good point. So, I don't think there's that many places. So the Steelers to me make a lot of sense. And to me, a fourth and a conditional fourth is kind of what you end up with when you're not shopping your player for just the most you can get from him, because either you're trying to do right by the guy or the guy has some power. So you don't really end up with a third if you're only sending him places he wants to go, right? Kind of like the Niners didn't have to trade a first for Trent Williams. They got to kind of dictate terms. Trent did.
That's ultimately my point with the no trade people freaking out. Like, it's going to be now. Trent had the juice on the skins and his contract. This one is a little different, but they are just. You're right. If the Commanders are his only option, he's going to get traded to the Commanders. But I just think there's going to be at minimum multiple.
Yeah,
options.
no.
Whether it's the Saints, whether it turns out. I think the Packers would be in play if fucking Rodgers could still. They're going to need a quarterback, and Jordan Love stinks.
I do think the Packers could be in play also, but wouldn't that be
He
something?
knows the offense.
If
right?
the Packers move off of Aaron because Jordan Love, but don't go to, I forget about because, and then don't go to Jordan Love, that would be pretty stunning.
But part of them moving off Aaron is going to be him saying I'm leaving.
Yeah,
and they don't have a
100%.
choice.
Yeah, them capitulating.
I don't think they have a choice. Even though I heard someone say they truly, like, based on the contract, like, it was more of a handshake deal. It's not written in there that, like, you remember Brady's thing, he became the free agent. That is not the case with Aaron.
That's right.
But it's like they gave him a wink handshake, like, we'll take care of you. Well, we'll see.
Somebody in the chat said that Keyshawn Johnson said Jimmy to the Raiders? Is that a made up thing?
Well, I mean, they would have to trade Derek Carr, and then I think, if Derek Carr was traded, how would the speculation not start immediately with a guy that coached him?
It would make a ton of sense. DM on the stream says Raiders are trading Carr to the Saints or Steelers, in my opinion.
Well, I would say that would be, and there are going to be some good, like, do you know the best stories that are going to come out of the combine? And, usually it's like 60-40. It's like 60, all the free agent buzz, but also, like, Trey Lance killed it in the interviews.
And like 2% seen at St. Elmo's, Doug Peterson, and
I think this year it's like 90% free agency shit because, like, no one cares about the offensive tackle from North Carolina State. Like, I'm sorry, no one gives a shit beside people in the NFL that might draft this guy in the top 5. But, like, it's going to be Watson, it's going to be Rodgers. If a Carr, like, actually, they've listened, because here's the thing. If Carr is on the block, unlike Jimmy, Carr's value is, would they get 2 1s and a 2? How would they not? That's what Jamal Adams and Jalen Ramsey went for. He's a quarterback. Now, it's a little different just because it's a double whammy. Those guys had to be paid. It was all their first contracts. Derek would have to be paid, and his contract dwarfs all these guys.
Right.